So I don't think it's any surprise to like pretty much anyone that Bambi has a major problem in her design philosophy, but as I've sort of just heard people say, well, she's bad, or actually she's better than you thought, or she's mid, or, you know, even a team won't save her. She needs buff. She doesn't need buff. She just needs a team. I think we're sort of missing the forest for the trees or what have you, which is that it's I think, unlike every other character who has been released in this state, let's say Soi Fon, for example, you know, classically Soi Fon was released in this state and people were very down on her, right? There really isn't any benefit to Bambietta currently, because at least with Soi Fon we had Yoruichi, and Yoruichi confused people because she suddenly was doing a lot of damage, and people took that as to say, well, actually Yoruichi's just strong, Soi Fon isn't, not understanding that the only reason that Yoruichi was doing damage at all is because Soi Fon was so powerful. Bambietta does not really have this, and in fact I think people are kind of misunderstanding just sort of the unfairness that Bambietta is facing. Now, does that mean she won't be buffed or she shouldn't get a little bit of tweaking or what have you? No, it doesn't mean that, but Bambietta has a sort of nightmare launch, right? Because she has probably the most demanding, you can actually see what I was like testing things over here. She has probably one of the more demanding gauges in the game to interface with. So if you look at Bambietta here, when you do anything, when you sort of are stacking up this energy here, you see it's filling the E, right? And when I press this button, you know, you can see that it's held while she's off screen, right? So when I'm pressing buttons, I'm doing things, you know, I'm getting my rotations up, and you know, I'm switching back into her, we get more damage out, and I switch off of her, and you know, we're doing all these little attacks to sort of, you know, holistically build this gauge. The one thing, you know, okay, so here we go. So now with our team off the field, we have built up to her full gauge. If we switch into her, she runs this attack. If we switch, and then, I don't know, switch again, right? And let's say we wanted to like get ult up, we have an entry skill that doesn't even require a bonus attack, right? Now, when we switch off of her, if we decide to just like flatly switch, she loses all of that. She completely loses her gauge. I mean, she converts a bit of it. You can see she gets quite a bit back. So like what then becomes like the option from someone trying to maintain this, right? So what if we switch and now she's in the state, we switch out to entry skill. I guess maybe we could use the exit to Volstandig. Okay, she's at half. And, you know, it kind of exits us out in a sort of like neutral space, right? The issue is we've gained nothing for that interaction, right? We've essentially gained nothing for that interaction because we've lost so much of this meter down here without accessing her win condition, which is going into Volstandig and actually using things like this. So what do I expect from her team when we actually like get to see this character? Well, I'm going to expect a mass assertion of this like skill, right? This entry skill thing that would bounce around these levels to a much higher degree. I think it's really unfortunate that they went with Bambi first because it's polluting the conversation, I believe, because by like introducing something that has no value right now. This has no value. This has, if anything, this has like counter synergy. Because at times it gets in the way of counterattacks. It has to be swapped out again so you can actually access it with the counters. And what I imagine is that Candice or you, whoever ends up being the tactic for this team, is going to be a character who helps with accessing this fast. See, if a character other than Bambietta uses an entry skill, Bambietta gains spiritual pressure. When another character uses a counterattack, Bambietta gains 20% spiritual pressure. Without the ability to access this 20% spiritual pressure on command or on demand, this is a really, really poor feeling mechanic. It's to the point where I've seen people say that, like, they don't like Kenpachi, for example. Kenpachi is not an interesting character to them. They don't like True Shikai Ichigo. True Shikai Ichigo isn't an interesting character to them. Bambietta is interesting, but that's her problem. I think that's literally her problem. If you have this and you start at maximum spiritual pressure, you can get your entire rotation off and then swap into her and then start doing like blah, 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 flurry, flurry, flurry. I think what this character could use, and you see it sort of here, is... Where is it actually? Is it this one? Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's a different thing with her, with her weapon or something. But I think what this character could genuinely use is an attack speed buffer and a base attack speed buffer, which that could be something Candace does. Oh, this increases basic attack damage. I think what we could get is an attack speed buffer, which is something I think we see with Kenpachi somewhere, like somewhere in his kit, or maybe it's just been speculated, but I think increasing her base attack speed somehow, whether it be through Candace support or something else, would help this character a lot. But obviously there is just sort of a mechanical breakdown of using this character that is sort of inarguable. It's to the point where I don't think we've ever seen a character dropped in such a bad position, and I can't give an honest opinion of what this character looks like, because what I've found, if you're B0, you don't have B1 Aizen, you don't have B1 any, I found that this is literally the best like rotation for this character, and it's mostly because, and you know, surprise surprise, right, it's mostly because this character, right, has just so much access to counterattacks, right? So I messed up there, but like, you know, getting this character in gives so much counterattack. So if you reset and you do something like this, right, and you actually do the counterattack fishing properly, then you end up with this, right? And this is so much better, so much more consistent than the Aizen one for my account, because I literally just do not have the access to like Aizen's spiritual gauge, right? So by the time we get to the, oh look at that, she's like full now, right? So when I switch her back in, she goes into fully, right? Like, that is so much better. And you would think that shouldn't be the case, right? That shouldn't be how this is. That can't be how this character was designed. She was like designed in a lab to use white Ichigo. There's just no way. But you could see, like, it becomes much more obvious what you can get up to when you use this like setup. Like I said, it's not optimal at all. It's not what you would want to be doing with a character like Bambi, but also with his ultimate sort of like cashing out in this way, you know, we're now in Volstending again, and both characters are like doing a thing. The issue is now, of course, you can't switch out Bambi because she'll lose all of her spiritual pressure and lose all of her Volstending, and suddenly, you know, you're doing a lot less damage. But again, you can do something like this and then, you know, just go back in as you would previously. So again, we go into counterattack, right? We check her thing, she's not going to get it, and then boom, we go into ult. So there's like one quote-unquote like workaround you could try, but this is just so unoptimal. This is just not making use of the character's mechanics in a way that is flattering at all, that I struggle to really even come up with like, I mean, look at the like poor amount of damage we did. Obviously, it's because we couldn't get Okieta or Yodohara's support back up, because if we switch out, she's going to lose her spiritual pressure. I believe that's how she works. If anyone, maybe I misremember, like maybe I just don't understand, but I believe that is how this character works. So, you know, like I said, we go into something like this, we use this, and you can see if you just want to have fun with this character. Also, White Ichigo is just a monster, so like he makes good use of the character mechanics without like needing anything, and that's one of his strengths, I think, is that he doesn't really need a bunch of babysitting, right? But you know, whatever. I think he's just a flatly stronger character than Aizen if you're running him off like lead, you know, like if to put it in Dokkan terms, if you're running him without sort of the benefit of a bunch of other characters. Obviously, he's just a stronger character than Aizen flatly, so it feels nicer to have his damage. But yeah, it's sort of tough for me to rank the girl, to rate the girl. You know, how do I rate her? Because I don't think she is actually bad. I think her skill literally doesn't work. This doesn't work. Like, this has to mean more. Bambi Squad Captain has to mean more. What I would expect for this character is, you know, she gets a full team, entry skill, entry skill, entry skill, entry skill, counterattack, entry skill. You know what I mean? Like, because people are saying, well, the thing is that when another character uses a counterattack or something, like if another character other than Bambi uses an entry skill, Bambietta gains spiritual pressure. When another character uses a counterattack, Bambietta gains 20% spiritual pressure. When I've heard people saying, well, they're probably not going to get counters if they're using entry skill. And it's like, no, they probably are. That's the thing. The entry skill characters like Yuryu, if he ends up being finesse, or Candace, if she ends up being finesse. Well, I hope so. I hope one of them ends up being finesse. That's the thing. They should probably generate counter attacks, and then Bambietta generates their entry skill, and then their entry skill generates Bambietta, and ba 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 ba. Like, that should be how the character is going to end up working. If we're thinking with our game developer brains, that makes the most sense, because otherwise, why would you create the entry skill? They said the new thing that finesse typings will do is the entry skill. So I think that is sort of my rough read of the character right now. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting, right? I mean, gliding bombardment is this. It links into the third attack. That means that the most optimal way to get out of Volstandig is to entry skill in, use the third basic, like basic out, and then you're already sort of... The thing, though, is that people aren't getting to do this optimally all the time because it's so hard to raise this meter. So again, she's just losing so much damage, and it goes back to the thing. It's fine if they buff her. I really don't care. You know, give me buffs. Give me Jade. You're just giving me free Jade, essentially. But there is sort of a problem. There is sort of a sickness of this character that isn't just, oh, she flatly needs damage. If she just had damage, it would all be fixed. It's like, I guess, but I don't think that making it so, like, she has to ignore her entry skill thing is, like, healthy. I think when you make characters, you should make them with purpose. You shouldn't just make them damage, like, sponges. Like, you shouldn't just, like, roll out the damage. I think a character should serve a purpose. I think it's why people are having a hard time understanding why Aizen isn't working like he used to with characters like Ulquieta, why Neliel isn't working like she used to with characters like Shika Ichigo. And this isn't like slander. I really don't mean this to be like, okay, it's time to dump on Neliel again, you know, as a joke, or it's time to dump on Aizen as a joke. I mean that Aizen was not made with Ulquieta in mind. There's no way he was. It's just not reasonable. And I could say that because people could be like, okay, well, once you have Boundary 4, it gets better. It's like, once you have Boundary 4, everything in the game gets better. It's called having boundaries. But when you actually look at characters who were made to work together, characters like WIchigo and Kenpachi, characters like Soi Fon and Grimmjow, you don't look at that and go, oh, all you need... If you just had Boundary 4 on Soi Fon, Grimmjow works like a dream. That's not... No one has ever needed to say that. No one was saying, oh, you just need Boundary 1 for Gin to work. And I would say Boundary 1 is like the required boundary for Neliel, but you did not need it to work with Grimmjow. So when people are like, oh, you just need boundaries for Aizen to work, it's like, no, that's not how this works. Having the boundary just makes it feel better because you're just flatly doing more damage. But synergistically, this is not working. This does not work. Ulquieta wants WIchigo. Ulquieta wants Soi Fon. Right? Aizen wants Zael plus a second support. But, you know, c'est la vie. Getting back to Bambietta, this is what I'm sort of talking about, is like, this does not work. It's not even that her kit is so bad. It's literally not functioning with her setup. The setup she has cannot function. So when people are saying like, okay, well, you just got to get Boundary 1 and then it fixes some of those problems, it's like, that's not fixing the problem. it doesn't work. It's increasing her damage, sure, but this does not work. This palpably, mechanically does not work. And I don't think that we've been shown by the dev team that that's what they're looking to do. It doesn't mean that you can't get Xayah Lapido to B6 and B4 and suddenly, you know, he's doing actual damage. Yeah, that always works. It's because he's just doing more damage. But the reality is Xayah Lapido's kit just works. It flows into Okieda's windows and they both get their buffs up at the exact same time, right? He works with Aizen in that way. The longevity of Yurahara is another example of that, right? It's like mechanically he's not, but the thing is, like, once you start talking about Toshido, this character outside of Dupes just does not work that way. Like, he just has not ever been given a chance to really work. Do you know who works with Toshido? This character. This is literally his best teammate. If this character actually just had numbers, you would run this character over Aizen every time with Toshido, because it feels better to play this character. It feels better to actually play the team of Toshido plus Rukia, because they actually synergistically meld together, right? That's sort of like the problem. And Bambietta just doesn't have that. She has that in no short or long order. There's nothing here for her, right? It's so bad. I mean, we talked about it, and when me and Giku got around for the podcasting, like, we talked about it. This is the worst case scenario, because it's not really fixed by just having more dupes. It will be fit. Like, your dupes will matter in a few weeks, but outside, like, there's no reason this character should be buffed to do True Shikai Ichigo's damage on her current team. That doesn't make any sense. Do you know how much better she would be than literally every single character in the game? She would be better than every single character in the game by a tall order if making her work with Aizen was the plan. Because imagine what happens when the entry skill actually is a functioning mechanic. Right now, she has a dysfunctional mechanic. It does not work. Her teammates aren't using entry skills. She's not gaining boundless amounts of attack. I mean, I don't know if this is stackable. It does not say it's unstackable, though. And things usually say unstackable when they aren't. She is missing 25% attack on every entry skill used. Yuryu or Candice or Giselle or whoever ends up having this entry skill with her, they could have easily fulfillable entry skills that just sort of rotate on a dime. And suddenly this character is generating tons of attack percent she doesn't have. Also, that's not even to say that we're missing hundreds of percent of critical damage. Like, this character's requirement for her stat build right now is crazy. Like, it's not even, this isn't even close to the same thing when we're using like Yurahara. So yeah, I think Bambi has some issues, but I also think the conversation around her has been a little flat. It doesn't really interest me too much. And I think that the big issue just becomes it's stupid that they released her first, because I literally don't know what this character does. You don't know what this character does. China doesn't know what this character does. We don't know what this character does. No one in the game synergizes at all with this character. No one mechanically links with this character. She doesn't have a Rangiku. She doesn't have a Rukia. She doesn't have anyone. This character just doesn't have teammates. And I guess to a greater point, if you are hearing this and you're wondering if you should pull or not, I would just wait, really. People always ask, am I going to pull, am I going to pull? I pull Boundary Zero. Like I said, I consider this channel the free-to-play channel. I do use the monthly. I will always just offer that information. It's so I can get B0 characters. This time, I ended up pulling her for literally free. It was all tickets. So I'm not feeling too bad that I got this character. I think in total, it was like 4,000 Jade to get her, 4,800, whatever the number is, to get her stamp. So it's like, I got this character for essentially free off of tickets, right? So if you're not in that position, like if you didn't get her off of the tickets, which there were a lot of, you could just wait. You could see how Yuryu goes. You could see if there are buffs. I don't think she really wants buffs yet until we actually know what this character does. I think a lot of the conversations around her have been premature. I think there is frustration, but of course there is, this game is a game where you can, and a lot of people do spend money to get these characters. So when the reception isn't glowing, it becomes very negative. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they changed this character to make her not terrible in this current state. Like, literally, not terrible as in she needs buffs, but like unusable, like mechanically unsynergistic outside of Dupes, which is the Dupes working. It's not her working, it's the Dupes working. And I think that does matter. And I think that's why you need B0 showcases. You need to see people use the character at B0 because you need to know what their kit does, because it can't just be Dupes all the time. Aizen at B0 wasn't just some fraud who didn't do damage. When Aizen was released, B0 Aizen did a lot of damage at the time, and he was the best like supporting unit in the game. We thought all tactics characters would be that forever, right? Aizen was so dominant in that space that even with B0 and 2 supports, he could hit like 30 million post buffs with his ultimate, right? So it's not like having a generalist mechanic around you like Aizen does makes you more glowing, and having a very specific bunch of mechanics working for you makes it really obvious when you do not have the characters to link up with those mechanics. So I don't know. I would wait if you're someone who hasn't pulled yet. You've been waiting on this video, been just waiting to decide. You're not really missing anything is the big point. You're just really not. Like, she's gonna be there for 61 more days. Yuryu or Candace should be in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks away, we should be looking at Yuryu or Candace. And we'll have more answers to this problem. But I really do think that one more character with an entry skill, and suddenly we're having a Soi Fon conversation where it's like, actually, I thought Soi Fon was good the whole time. It's like, no, you didn't. A lot of y'all didn't understand that Soi Fon was good the entire time. A lot of y'all didn't understand that Soi Fon literally didn't need to receive any buffs. She essentially got a quality of life tap on the head. Like, she really didn't need anything. She was good the whole time. She was generating more counterattacks than any character in the game. And she was making Yoruichi. Her damage was Yoruichi's damage, and people were glazing the fuck out of Yoruichi. So, that's going to do it for me. That's my perspective. You can tell me how you feel about it if you've made it this far. Like, if you liked the video, subscribe to the club, we'll go make it, and peace.